World War I was mainly a war of attrition. Countries and their armies typically did not give up until they had become completely demoralized over the magnitude of the losses that they had suffered. This increasing demoralization is what in the end led to mutinies, revolutions, and ultimately surrender. The games track the losses that armies suffer in terms of demoralization points, which are also called DM points. The comparison of demoralization points between players usually determines the winner and loser of a campaign or scenario. Players keep track of DM points they accumulate on the points track using their appropriate DM markers. Note that in the case shown here, the German player has 34 DM points, while the Russian has 62. Countries take DM points as a result of the enemy entering their cities, but most DM points are accrued as the result of losses in normal combat. A country takes 1 DM point for every strength point of infantry lost in normal combat, while the penalty is double for cavalry strength points. Here's a simple example. In this combat, the German player loses 5 infantry and 2 cavalry strength points. Meanwhile, the Russian player loses 5 infantry strength points. The German player would take 4 demoralization points for the cavalry losses, plus another 5 for the infantry losses, for a total of 9 demoralization points. Meanwhile, the Russian player would take 5 DM points for losing 5 of his infantry strength points. The normal DM rates for losses are doubled when units take losses while surrounded. This is because losses while surrounded involve some degree of troops surrendering, and in surrendering, units also lose their leadership and administrative staffs. A unit or group of units are surrounded when they cannot trace a line of communication to a friendly map edge. A line of communication is a path of hexes of any length that does not include a hex occupied by an enemy unit or an unoccupied hex containing an enemy zone of control. In this example, the Russian units in hexes 1513, 1612, 1713, and 1714 are surrounded. There is a ring of hexes, shown in gray, either containing German units or unoccupied hexes containing German zones of control around these units. This ring prevents the Russian units from tracing a line of communication to the south or east map edges, which are the map edges friendly to the Russian, as these are Russian territory. In this change to the previous example, the ring around the previously surrounded Russian units is broken by the Russian cavalry division in 1514. The previously surrounded Russian units can now trace a line of communication through 1514 and then on through 1414, which does not contain a German zone of control, and then on to the south map edge. Because of the Russian unit in hex 1514, none of the Russian units shown are now surrounded. If units are surrounded, their best option is to move to get out of this situation. In this situation from the first example, the Russian units can and should move to get out of being surrounded. Each of them should, during the movement phase, probably move to the south, and this would change their situation. Units that stay surrounded for a full turn and are not surrounded together with a fortress are eliminated. The units surrendered, and the owning player will take a lot of DM points as a result. Here is another situation of units who are surrounded. In this case, they can't get out of it by moving. German units block the way, so they will try a breakout attack against the German cavalry division in 1613. Since the 25th and 28th Russian divisions are surrounded, they will attack at 1/4 normal strength. To make the attack, each division must first lose 1 strength point. These 2 strength points are considered lost to surrender prior to the combat, so the 2 surrounded divisions can use 6 remaining strength points, which, due to their situation, are effectively quartered to 1.5, which is then rounded down to 1. As part of the breakout attempt, the Russian 27th Division also participates. The Russian player expends a supply point from the 2nd Army headquarters to supply this division's attack. So the Russian would attack the German cavalry with a total of 5 strength points, 4 from the supplied and unsurrounded 27th Division, and 1 from the surrounded units, as explained previously. Let's say the Russian player rolls a 3 and forces the German cavalry division to retreat. Furthermore, let's say the German, who counterattacks with a strength of 4, rolls a 5, resulting in a strength point loss for the Russians. The results are shown here. The Russians would lose 3 strength points, 2 strength points to enable the surrounded units to attack, and another loss due to the German counterattack. All 3 of these strength point losses would come from the 2 surrounded Russian units, and would be considered lost while surrounded, so the Russians would take 6 DM points for these losses. But the German cavalry would retreat to 1514, and the Russian 25th and 28th Divisions would be able to advance after combat into 1613, and thus get out of being surrounded. Fortresses are a big support to surrounded units. The German units in 2008 and 2009 are surrounded by the Russians, but note that there is a German fortress in 2009. The presence of the fortress in the pocket, that is the surrounded area, prevents the surrounded units from having to surrender if they are surrounded for a full turn. This is because the units can live off of the stockpiles in the fortress. Also, if the German unit in 2008 were attacked and had to retreat, it could retreat into 2009. Normally, surrounded units cannot retreat from an enemy zone of control to another hex also in an enemy zone of control, even if the retreat destination contains a friendly unit. But because hex 2009 contains a German fortress, the unit in 2008 can retreat into that hex. Note that Russian units surrounded together with a fortress won't be as well off. This is because, as was pointed out in the video on fortresses, surrounded Russian fortresses lose 6 strength points per turn and are eliminated the instant their strength falls below 4.